Welcome to CraftQuest on Call. I'm Ryan Ireland, and I am the person behind CraftQuest.io. Thanks for joining us on the live stream. And if you are not on CraftQuest.io/live streams watching this or on YouTube, why don't you hop over there because there's a chat. We have the YouTube chat going, and you can check in there. There's some people already in there saying hi. So thanks for joining us. We got some questions today. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Andrew Welch of NY Studio 10. Andrew, what are you doing?
I don't want to go to school today. What?
Yeah. It's
What's going on, Ryan?
It's 8 p.m. It's not time for school. It's time for CraftQuest school. I think we're gonna see if these questions from the community will school us today. I
have the feeling they will.
They probably will. I'm not feeling exceptionally high on energy, so we'll try to make this work. I was letting everyone know
Ryan,
to join us in the chat. I'm not sure if you could hear me or not as you were wandering around looking for your sandwich or whatever. So join us in the chat. We're here every the first and third Thursday of the month. So this is our number 3, and I feel like so much has happened since we last talked. So
what
happened here in the U.S.? Like we have a new president.
What?
Yeah.
Why did nobody tell me?
I hustled my butt through 8 hours of snow, rain, and sleet for the Bandera. So here in Texas, there's a popular race called the Bandera. What is it? Bandera Endurance Run. So there's 25K, 50K, 100K. And I
find popular
in a very small trail running community throughout the country. It actually is one of the main races that people go to try to win. Not me, actually really good people. So they could get what's called a golden ticket to Western States Endurance Run. That's in the summer, like in June, I think, out in California. That's a 100-miler. And so you
have to be invited to run 100 miles.
Yeah, to get a golden ticket, which is an automatic entry. Otherwise, you're in a lottery system.
So you're saying it's like a privilege to run this 100 miles? Because they'd have to put a gun to my back to get me to run the 100 miles.
People spend years trying to do a qualifying race and then get in a lottery just to do that 100 miles through all sorts of terrain. That's what's so interesting about it. It goes from it can be cold to super hot, lots of climbing, or sort of a high river crossing where you're holding onto a rope to get across. There's all sorts of cool stuff. It's called Western States.
Well, if somehow I got one of these golden tickets, Ryan, I would put that sucker on eBay. That's going to the highest bidder. Boom.
I don't think that's allowed. I think you'd be breaking. See, you wouldn't be a good part of the trail running community, Andrew, if you were already trying to profit off of those things. So anyway, that's what I did. That's my hat here. That's why I'm wearing my commemorative bandera. That's rattlesnake. It's also the medal is that route, the award medal that you get just for participating or for finishing. And that takes place out in Bandera, Texas, which is about 2.5 hours from Austin. And there's a sort of a state park or natural area, they call it. So it's not even as nice as a state park that you run through.
I also am wearing some gear that I won from an endurance contest, Ryan.
Oh, you are? Okay. What do you got?
Yeah, so we have a local garbage plate eating contest. I don't know if you know what a garbage plate is, but if you're in Rochester, New York, what they do is they take mac salad and then home fries, and then they put 2 patties on top, and then they drip hot sauce all over it, and it's this 3,000 calorie nightmare.
Wow!
And whoever's able to eat the most, it's an endurance kind of thing. And I'm wearing. I got my garbage plate underwear on that they gave me for making it through the whole thing without having to go to the bathroom.
Great. We don't need to see it. You know, 3,000 calories. I was actually, I think I burned about 4,000 on that 50K. So I probably could have used one of those garbage plates after I ate.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, you're not in training. You don't have the body for it, Ryan. Like you're not prepared for the garbage plate 5,000. Trust me, you can't do it.
yeah, that's true. I'm actually not. I haven't run since that race, so it's been almost 2 weeks. I just been
Mm.
chilling. It's been nice. Anyway, so that's what's going on here. How's everyone doing out there at home? If you have a question or want to give some feedback as we're talking through the questions, you can drop us a line in the chat. You'll need to go either to YouTube to the live stream or to craftquest.io/livestreams. And Andrew is already drinking. I don't have
Gotcha.
anything. I just have water today and a little bit of hibiscus tea.
Well, I am drinking. I cracked open that fine bottle of liquor that you sent me, Ryan, for my help. The one that you promised me. I cracked it open and oh, wait a minute. No, this isn't. No, this isn't the one you sent me at all. In fact, you didn't send me one. All right.
Okay, so we got that out of the way. This is like a regular thing we do. We just have it on our list of items to cover.
It wouldn't be regular if you fulfilled your promises. Just saying.
All right, you ready to jump in? You have anything you want to talk about?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it.
Do I have anything I want to talk about?
Yeah.
You mean like craft or development related, or just
Yeah.
stuff
Stuff
in
that's
general?
relevant to the people that are watching.
Oh, okay. Not really. I mean, mostly I've been working hard on some pretty cool updates to some of my plugins.
Okay.
So I'm pretty excited about that. But I don't want to
You don't want to
clog
share
up
anything yet?
not yet. And well, even if I was, like, I don't know if this is the platform for it. You know what I mean? Like, we're here to answer people's questions, not show off whatever stuff I'm working on. But I did run into some pretty cool stuff. Like, I've been doing playing around with SVGs.
Oh,
And it's one of those things where I thought I knew SVGs. I'm like, it's just XML, and you got, some PostScript-like drawing stuff in it, and that's it. That's an SVG. But I discovered a whole bunch of stuff about SVGs that I did not know. Like, I had no idea about, and it's kind of neat. Kind of neat. I found out how to do responsive SVGs well. The biggest thing that I found out that I didn't know is that you can embed an SVG inside of an SVG.
That's what you were saying.
And it's really, yeah. Well, and the cool part about it is what I'm doing is I'm making view components that generate SVGs, right? So then what I can do is I can just embed those components inside of an SVG, and I can build it out like it's an actual componentized thing, and it's all just SVGs all the way down. But I had no idea that you can just slop in an SVG, and in fact, that's the recommended way to kind of do the kind of building block stuff that I'm doing.
Right.
Is make it an SVG so that it gets its own view box and context every place that it's embedded, so you can do different sizes, scaling it, and all that kind of good stuff. And I've been able to do some really cool programmatic stuff using Vue to generate SVGs. So I've got these Vue components that do various things, and they generate the SVG, and it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat.
That's cool. Well, maybe whenever you're ready to talk about that, it'd be cool to show like how you're doing that for the folks that are interested.
Yeah.
But we do have a question, and I don't know if I haven't seen Andrea jump in the chat yet, but we'll answer her question first anyway, or try to at least. So this is what Andrea asked. She said, "How can I duplicate a site that already exists in my local development environment without duplicating the thousands of user-generated assets, like images? Is there a way I can set placeholders for the images? If so, how?" So it sounds like Andrea has a site that she is that she just wants to duplicate. This isn't. We've talked about boilerplate sites before, but I don't think that's what this is. She just wants to just dupe this site, but there's tons of, maybe query the content. I think that's what she's getting at. Is that?
So when I first read it,
Hmm.
I thought she wanted to duplicate a site. In other words, a site in Craft,
In Craft. Okay, yeah.
and then duplicate that. But I don't think that's what she wants at
A
all. I
project, I
think
think is what
she's
she's talking about.
Yeah, I think she's got a website or a craft project that is off in production somewhere, and um, maybe it's the first time she's been setting up local dev for it or whatever, and she wants to pull it all down without having to duplicate all or without having to pull down all of the assets that are there.
Well, no,
And
she
she's
says it
basically
already
saying,
exists in her local development. So maybe she's using it as the starting point for another site. Oh, no, there she is. So maybe, Andrew, if you want to drop any of your clarifications, we'll just keep going here. So,
yeah, I'm confused. If it already exists in her local development, what do you mean duplicating the thousands of user-generated assets? I don't. Are those already in your local development, or are those only in another environment and you don't want to pull them down, and therefore you want to use placeholder images or something?
yeah, she says a second local dev instance. Without
Second local dev.
yeah. So without what I was first thing that came to my mind was maybe those images or those user generated assets just shouldn't be locally hosted. Maybe they should be on a remote volume.
Well, if they already exist in in a website somewhere else, right? Couldn't you just set the asset URL to that? Wouldn't that just work?
That would work, and then you have to re-index, right? And then that would work just fine. I mean, I do that all the time with
Well, if you re-index, it would have to be in an S3 bucket or something, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But I assume that these images, these user-generated assets are. I thought they were actually like assets, like in Craft. So
all right. So she says she wants to do this to test stuff without breaking the main local dev. And now I've got more questions. So, like, because this is what I would probably just make a branch. And if we're worried about hosing the database, like just back up the database first and make a branch, and then change whatever you want to change. And if you do host something in the DB, just restore it from the backup that you made. But maybe there's some part of it that I'm missing, that I'm not understanding.
Yeah, or just duplicate the assets. I mean, I assume if they're images, they might not be that big. I do a lot of where I'll just create like a investigation branch, and if I'm actually doing like data migrations because I'm updating to a different version of the CMS or of a plugin or something that's going to manipulate the database, then I'll just duplicate the database and just point my branch temporarily at that other database, and that way I can just delete it and then be on my way. I do that all the time. I'll name it. I'll name it something like, I do it all the time when I'm testing new versions of Craft. I'll do like CraftQuest _36RC4 or whatever it is, and that way it's just like a temp thing, and I can just point my .env file back to the normal local development database. Now that's for when I was doing Valet. Andrew's got me all set up on Docker now, so I'm not sure how that would work on that.
Well, I'm going to tie it in now. I'm going to tie it in. So I don't know what part of the site she's worried about breaking. I'm going to assume it's not the code, because we've got that in Git. We're not too worried about breaking anything there. Like we can just make a branch, start doing our work, and if we host something, we'll just delete the branch and we're good, right? So I'm assuming it's not that. So let's say it's the database. One cool thing about a Docker setup is that if you want to do something like this in your Docker setup, like literally all you would have to do is change the name of the database that you wanted to use. And when you did a Docker compose up, it would automatically notice that this database doesn't exist. It would suck in your seed database and it would be up and running.
Yeah.
So it's just another example of, if you containerize stuff, there are advantages to having these things containerized like that. And then when you're done doing whatever testing or whatever that you're doing locally, you can just change the name back the name of the database that you use in your .env,
Yep.
and it will use a different database. You know.
There you go. Since that, yeah, you're just seeding it at different data. Cool. I like that.
Yeah, and that it basically, like, you're basically just leveraging the fact that starting up the database container, it will seed it with whatever database is in there. So if you change the name of the database, it'll be like, oh, this database doesn't exist. I'm going to seed it with whatever my little seed thing is, you know?
Right.
And it would make it super easy to just switch back and forth between them.
Yeah, that's actually even easier than
Yep.
than before. Evan was mentioning problems with the chat on the CraftQuest site. It's giving us some problems. I was noticing it was like not connecting, so I apologize. I've probably had put in like 3 little fixes to try to work around changes in YouTube and how it lets you embed chat and stuff. Yeah, or open it up and just right in YouTube.
That's what I always do is I go to CraftQuest.
Yeah.
And then I don't trust it because it's this plugin that's written by some very questionable person that does the embed on the actual site.
From the Rochester
So what I do
area.
is I open it up in YouTube itself.
Yeah. Andrea said, for example, migrate a bunch of pre-parse fields to craft fields and create a custom module to replace pre-parse.
Yeah, so we want a branch to branch our code, and we just want another copy of the database, you know?
And if you're using Project Config and you're up to the latest craft, then you should get all that field support in Project Config as well. So it would be file-based rather than just database-based.
Yeah, and okay, so even if you're not using Docker for this, Andrea, like, why not just change the name of the database and whatever you're using, whether it's Homestead or, you know, whatever it is, just change the name of the database and import a database there and do your thing, and, you know, then you can always just change it back. Or maybe not even go that far. I mean, I don't know if you have my craft scripts set up, but they will go out to a remote database and suck down a new version of it, you know? And then you don't even need to make a copy of the database, right? So you create your test branch, like you do your stuff in it, and you modify the database, you do whatever you want to it. And then you can just, if something screws up, like just pull a fresh copy down using the script. And then there you go. Like you kind of don't even, local dev, like I view it as expendable. So I would never worry if I hose my local database because I'm always pulling that from somewhere else, or I can always get it from somewhere else, you know? So you probably don't, like, you probably don't even need to do the extent of what I was mentioning, you know? Like I probably wouldn't. Maybe I'm crazy, but I probably would just make a branch. I'd pull a copy of the database down and I'd start doing all my work. And when I screw something up, I just pull the database down again and do it again, you know?
Same.
Yeah.
All right. So another question. Andrea, I hope that's helpful. Thanks for jumping in the chat and clarifying for us.
Yeah,
right,
she said she doesn't want to lose her work that she's doing in local dev. And if that's the case, like if you are doing a whole lot of work in local dev that you're eventually going to push somewhere else, and okay,
right,
then do what we're saying, and, you know, make a copy of the database, rename it, and work from that one, you know?
Yeah.
But I always tend to use a flow where code goes up and content goes down, right? So code, in terms of the code that I'm writing, whether it's PHP or Twig or Project Config now, is now code, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being checked in as a YAML, and that goes up, but the content, I'll always be pulling that down from a database somewhere else. So I'm never going to be, I'm never going to be adding content on my local dev environment. I'll be adding fields and schemas and that kind of stuff, which goes up as code, but I'm never adding content locally. And that's just the way that I work, you know? All
right. So let's do another question. We have one little demo thing we wanted to do on this live stream, but otherwise we're going to just do some questions. All right, here's the next one.
The demo gods are with us.
They weren't earlier, but now they are, I hope. All right, here's the next question. From Stack Exchange.
Oh boy.
Debug toolbar is 404ing and won't display on a multi-site setup. So This person says when they're logged in as an admin, they have both these options enabled, and the Yeet debug toolbar still doesn't display. There's a 404. And I was trying to recreate this, but I couldn't.
Enhance.
What's that?
Enhance. I'm one of the 80s movies, and I'm clicking on enhance on the photograph. I'm hitting the enhance button. I'm expecting that to magically get better so I can read it. Okay, enhance. You know what I'm talking about? You know those cheesy movies where they're like enhance? Oh my God, it's working just like the movie. Enhance. It totally works just like the movie. Okay. So if this is getting a 404, something is wrong with their local dev setup. Right? Because this looks right to me. So
yeah.
It's production?
No, it's a .com here. Unless they're trying to access it, unless their URLs are messed up or something like that.
It doesn't have to be. Okay, it could be local dev, but you're right. It probably is production. But regardless, whatever environment this is, something is wrong. Probably.
That's our answer.
Yeah, isn't that genius? Hey, guess what, sir? Something is wrong. No. What I mean is, like, from a DevOps point of view, we found the problem. Something's wrong. No, it's going to be either in your htaccess or in your Apache config or in your Nginx config. Because if you look at that URL, it's going to the index.php.
Yep.
It's setting the path to actions, and it's setting it to everything that it should be. So something is rewriting that wrong. So he's probably got a rewrite rule if it's Apache or a location block if it's Nginx that is wrong and is causing that. Yeah. I can almost guarantee you that that's what's going on. And probably they added some kind of a redirect rule. I don't know, maybe to handle something with the multi-site, and it's just not quite right. You know?
Yeah, so he linked over to another issue where they talked about how to show the Yeet debug toolbar. And something.
My God, whose avatar is in that answer?
Yeah, so sometimes they go through like a whole bunch of like side things, but there is like a thing where if you are doing multi-site sites, I believe that you can't get the Yeet debug toolbar to appear if you're looking at a multi-site site that you're not logged into, right? Because there's no session there. And where I started going with this, I didn't have time to actually try to test it, but is like I have a project that I worked on where it is a multi-site installation. It's using the base CP URL config. So I'm tying so the CP login is tied to a subdomain that's completely separate than all the other domains. It has nothing to do with those. So if I log in, I can only log in to the CP via that subdomain. That means if I'm understanding it correctly, unless there's another workaround, that I can only get the Yeet debug toolbar at that domain, at that that domain, not at any other domain.
Can we enhance again?
Enhance. There you go.
All right. So let's take a look at this. So, yeah.
So it sounds like
what I would be interested in.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it sounds like this person is, I assume they're trying to access it directly from, what I would have been nice is for them to like unnest the GET request, but it looks like they're probably accessing it from this same URL, and because they're getting a 404. You wouldn't get a 404 if it was like some sort of like cross-site like issue or something like that. Wouldn't you get like a...
Well, that's what I was going to get to, is that if it is that logged in thing, I wouldn't necessarily expect to get a 404, which is really what is making... Yeah, I mean, it's what is making me think that it is very likely going to be a DevOpsy thing in terms of a rewrite or some kind of rule that is not quite right. Because if it really was the issue that you just have to be logged in on that site, I wouldn't expect that you would have a 404 here. I would expect it just not to try to load this, right? But this looks right to me, right? It's hitting the index.php. It's got the actions. It's got all that kind of good stuff. I am 90% sure that would be what it's going to end up being. And how I would try to diagnose this. If it's a HT access thing, you can just like try commenting out some rules that look suspect and see if it works, you know? The other thing I would do is I would look in the server logs, because they will, and then, I'd hit this, both the craft log, but then also the Apache or Nginx log, because it should show you the incoming action. And if it does get rewritten to somewhere else, it'll show you where it was rewritten to.
Right.
And maybe that will give you a clue about what might be wrong. But I would bet that it's going to be a DevOpsy thing. What do you think, Ron? How much money are we going to put on it? What do you think?
I mean, I agree with you. So I'm not putting any money on it at all. And I believe we had a conversation last week where you told me that if you ever try to challenge me to a bet, I should never take it. So I'm not putting any money on anything.
And it's not because I'm not saying that I'm always right, but I'm saying if I'm willing to bet, then you're at a disadvantage.
You've played a lot of poker, and you know when to wager. All right. So, cool. Anyone in the chat, if you have any thoughts on this or any questions of your own, drop those in the chat. All right, Andrew, let's do one more, and then we'll jump into our demo and talk about some upcoming stuff in Craft.
Nice.
All right, here we go. Next question. Update a remote stock database. So this person says, I'm building an online store with Craft Commerce, but I have a problem. I need to update a remote stock on every purchase. This stock is located in a remote server. Do you know if there's a plugin that exists to make this task easier for me? Maybe a plugin that posts a request on every purchase or something like that. So actually somebody, since I put together this list, somebody actually did
yeah, I was gonna say this is kind of lame, Ryan, because someone already answered it, and it's Jeremy.
Listen,
Jeremy's a smart guy. He gave a good answer.
He did give a good answer, but this was like last night. I was putting together this list of questions, and look, 20 hours ago, this happened last time too. Yeah. So I was thinking about this as like more of like what I think are some of the most interesting things to talk about are generally like how you approach solving problems. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about here, which is yes, I think it's probably not an unusual problem that you have to access external, stock systems or inventory systems from Commerce. I wouldn't be surprised if there's actually a plugin that does this. Do you think there's a plugin that already does like some inventory management or something like that? Let me see.
With Commerce? There might be.
Let's see.
Search on inventory.
Looking. I'm just looking at the Commerce ones just to, because people don't always use the right keywords.
Yeah, but you can try it first.
Also, there's ShipStation, which I don't think. Oh, no, that's not it. All right, geez. Okay, I'll try it. Inventory. Hope it doesn't come up with anything. So you're not right.
Please come up with one. Boom.
Yeah, that's
I don't think it does it.
That's just let's take your field usage. So again, like it's the
Damn.
but so maybe there isn't something, but a lot of times like these inventory systems can be like legacy, enterprisey, home built. Maybe they're tied into like some system that isn't popular enough for someone at least to write a plugin for. So yeah, you might have to do your own. So back to the question, where is it? So the answer is yes. And then, Jeremy did give an answer here is that, you could use the webhooks plugin, of course, to send a webhook on every purchase. You can also write your own. You can write a module that looks for the event of a purchase, and then has some sort of, you would have to store in your Commerce database for the products some ID that references whatever the item in the external system, like a SKU. Maybe it's a SKU that you would use. So there would have to be a connection there, so you would know how to connect it. So he also says module. So he's given all the same answers. Listen to the Commerce events. So yeah.
Yeah. Try to act like you didn't read it ahead. Go ahead.
I did not.
Sure, Ryan.
I just loaded these from my Bear document. Oh man.
So this is reason number 92, I think, that people find me annoying. But the first thing that I would do in a case like this is I would ask more questions, right? Like
Okay.
I would want to know a little bit more about what this API was, what it should currently do, and then also what potentially it might need to be doing down the road. I have the feeling that Jeremy's right, that you're almost inevitably going to need to write some kind of custom code around this thing. Um, Even if you could get away with it now using the webhooks plugin, I feel like it's the kind of thing that at some point in the future, someone is going to be like, huh, I really wish it could do this, or I think it would be
Right.
nice if it did that. That being the case, I would be inclined to write either a custom module or a custom plugin that would do it.
And why
It's
why
interesting that
why
you,
is that? Because so the first thing when someone says webhook, I think of is what's like how does this have to scale? Because like it's not going to queue anything. Like do the webhooks queue in Craft? I actually don't even know when it fires off a webhook. They're not using the internal task queue, are they? No, they can't. Do you know?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not
So I
sure.
always think about that, like with webhooks, like, what's the volume of like requests that are
I
sent
know
out?
that something was added to make it debounce
Okay.
because
But
that was
that's not helpful though. Debounce isn't going to help. That's just for
right.
duplicates. Um,
Well, it's so the API doesn't get flooded, right? It's so
right.
you don't have tons and tons of stuff that is going through it.
But if every
Um,
single one has to go through, like if
yeah.
then anyway, that's where I think webhooks, would be maybe more of a challenge. And I'm speaking a little bit or quite a bit off the cuff here. But then your comment about plugin, like that's when you can actually take advantage of like a queuing, the queuing and do it maybe a little bit nicer than. And
Yeah, I mean so basically what the webhooks plugin does is Craft fires like a whole bunch of events.
Mhm.
And what you can do is you can tap into all of the events that can be fired from various things. And you can say, if this event happens, I want you to shoot a webhook. I want you to ping this URL and have it do something, right? So the nice thing about the webhooks plugin is that in combination with something like Zapier, you can do some pretty complicated stuff, right? So whenever something happens, you can then have it hit Zapier that can then do whatever complex flow thing that you need it to do.
Right. And
And
if you
it's
want to
nice
check
because
out,
then
I have a video, a lesson I did on the webhooks plugin right when it first came out. I think they've actually improved it quite a
yeah.
bit since then. So, but go ahead
But
with what
it
you're
lets
saying.
you do some stuff without writing a whole lot of code, right? Because there are
Yep.
lots of services and Zapier can tie into a whole ton of them. So you can just wire it up and you can just have it go. But I have the feeling that whatever this inventory system is probably going to be proprietary enough that it's going to need its own special little auth. It's going to need its own
Yep.
special little payload. Who knows what else it is. But that's why I would start by asking more questions. Like I'd want to know more about what's going on.
Yeah. And
Um,
Zapier is good, especially if you pay for it and you're not limited to the amount of zaps that can happen. But I'm always hesitant to like build like mission critical things on a service like that. So
I
just
mean, I get it.
yeah.
I get it. But
Although
and
although
that's
like is there even greater risk of building mission critical things like with like my own plugin code? Like I mean
and that's something that's funny though. That's something that's funny is there's some people that are like, I use as few plugins as possible
right.
because I don't want there to be anything that could go wrong with their code. I don't want more bugs added or whatever. And then they just end up writing it themselves. And unless you really know what you're doing, you probably just made more,
Right.
right? Then yeah.
You also introduced technical debt that is harder to
Yeah.
clear because you didn't pay someone, a third party to like with your
Right.
whatever it is, like SEO-matic, right? The money that people pay every year to get all the updates. That's
Yeah.
like is it $40, $60, whatever it is. You would never get a developer to you would never pay them that to like manage.
Yeah, I think it's 39 or something
some
like that.
homegrown plugin that you have. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. So I would be, but in this case, this is something where I might consider writing a custom module just because I have the feeling that whatever the API is that we're hitting is probably some internal system somewhere,
Right.
or if it's not, it probably isn't, popular enough that an existing off-the-shelf Zapier thing would just work. Maybe,
Right.
maybe it would, I don't know.
Or if it is something popular, then you can maybe write a plugin. And if you know how to write plugins and feel like you're confident enough to do that, then maybe you can write a plugin for Craft that does that. So there's, I just don't
and
know.
that was going to be my next thing was, well, do I make it a module or do I make it a plugin? Right. And typically the way I do it is I make it a module if it's going to be an inherent part of the site. In other words, the site will not function without it. So it literally is part of the site. And also it's something that is so specific that I'm probably never going to use it again anywhere else.
Right.
That's when I kind of reach for modules. And the scaffolding that I use by default has a module like set up and ready to go so that when it inevitably happens that I need to add something, I can just fire it up and away we go, But
wouldn't
in this case, go ahead.
Okay, you give your take because I was thinking of where this would fall with the e-commerce updating an external system.
I think it probably would be relatively common that at various phases of something happening in commerce, such as something being purchased, et cetera, that an external endpoint might want to be pinged. I don't know how you would do it in a super generic way without writing additional code. I'm not sure if there would be any great way to do that other than, I guess what you could do is you could have your own kind of like little JSON payload builder in the back end. Like that would be a thing that you could do. And you could populate that with Twig template stuff so that people could put variables in. Like think of it like sending an email, right? So when you make an email template, you just write the stock stuff and then you fill in the Dear John stuff with a variable. Well, you can do the same thing with a JSON blob, right? And you could do the same thing here with that. If I thought there was a market for it, then maybe I would consider making a plugin. And if you're writing this for a client, typically the client will say, I don't care. I don't need to own this thing because they don't want to own it. They don't want to maintain it.
Right.
They'd be more than happy to let you own it and potentially sell it. Now, don't get your hopes up. I don't think the market for craft commerce sites that also need an inventory ping management system is so huge that you're going to retire on your beach, down in the Caribbean. But, it's something to get your feet wet with doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I was thinking more from an architecture standpoint. Is it less risky to have that built as a module because it's always attached to the code as part of the code base of the site? As opposed to as a plugin where like some, developer that's working on it could accidentally uninstall the plugin and then your site stops working.
Yeah.
But I guess you could say that for anything. So it's I guess it's if you're building it yourself, maybe a module is the better way to go. That's pretty common, right? If you don't need settings and it's something that really is truly important to the site and it's it's your own, then you should probably just do it as a module.
Yeah, and understand that Yi is a website framework. So prior to Craft coming along, people would spin up Yi and they would develop a whole website using Yi,
right,
with custom modules and all that kind of good stuff. So it's not weird at all to write this stuff and have it be actually part of the site. And you really only want to make it a plugin when you think you're going to use it in a bunch of different places, or you need the settings, or you want to sell it.
Yep. All right, let's do our main topic.
Well, looks like Joe's got a question.
Oh, Joe, what does Joe have?
So he's saying he's using the anchor tags download attribute, but it keeps on opening up in a new window. I think it might be some kind of weird cross-domain thing, or am I nuts? So basically, he has a link to a PDF that is at some URL, and when people click it, he wants it to just download it. You look lost.
No, I'm actually trying to see if I can get the comment up on the screen. Sorry. Hold on.
Oh,
Oh, it doesn't work with Restream. Okay. Using the ATEX download attribute, it keeps opening up in a window. I think it might be I get some weird cross domain, or am I nuts? I have
right.
a link to a local
So
repeater.
looking up the download attribute, it says the download attribute specifies that the target, the file specified in the href attribute, will be downloaded when the user clicks on the hyperlink. The optional value of the download attribute will be the new name, blah, blah, blah. The value is admitted. I mean, all this is saying is that it is going to, I don't know why it would open in a new window, though. Let's just see. Trial by Google.
Should bring that up. Download.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
A element. Download attribute. I always go to Mozilla. I think they have some good info usually. Attributes. Download only works for same origin URLs.
Boom.
There you are. And he said he's on a different, right?
Yeah. There you go.
He said it only breaks if the asset is stored on S3 Cloudflare.
Yeah, which is consistent with what we're talking about. It's a different domain. So if you really need this functionality, I guess what you got to do is host it on the same domain.
Right. Or the blob or data schemes. I'm curious why he wants to use that attribute.
Well, he's got a link to a PDF, and when people click it, he wants it to download. As opposed to opening in a new browser window that people can read, which is maybe not what he wants. You know,
Okay.
Maybe it's a download link that actually says download. You know, and he wants it to physically download the file. Isn't this great though? Everyone in chat can ask a question, and we'll just Google the answer for you. We'll be your Google monkeys. We'll be your little Google monkeys.
Tune in
You ask us
live.
a question, we'll Google it.
As we Google the answers. Congratulations, everyone. I have a PDF preview already, and then my client wants their users to download the PDF. Yeah, hey, Google. That's it. I mean,
great. Yeah,
the internet's a cool place.
Say, hey, Ryan. Yeah, Joe's. Yeah, we can order you some food, Joe. It's only going to be garbage plates, though. That's all we're sending you. See if you can get that garbage plate 3,000 or 5,000. See if you can win a medal.
All right, let's do our. Thanks for asking a question, Joe. Appreciate that. Hopefully, we're helpful.
It's funny.
We saved you some typing. We saved you some typing.
That's a question, and we're just like, let me use my infinite knowledge to find the answer. Google.
All right. So going over
this
to
is
the
development, though, right? Isn't that develop? How many times like in a day do you Google the answer to something? I do it all the time.
Here's the thing, though. I know all of the answers already in my head. So I don't
really?
No, not at all.
That's hilarious.
I actually reference my card catalog for keywords.
Well, here's the big brain thing, right? Mm-hmm. So the whole reason I wrote SEO-matic is so that my site can register the keywords and do really well in the Google rankings, so that when I forget how to do something that I already wrote about, I can just Google it, and then my article will show up on the top of the list, and I can click it, and I could read what past Andrew knew how to do and present Andrew doesn't. And that's it. I'm done. The loop is complete.
Okay, hang on. Update.
Uh-oh.
Joe said that a bunch of people said newer browsers got rid of the cross-domain protection. Where is...
I guess the only thing I would say is you're at the mercy of the browsers, though. So if you want something that works consistently, probably you're going to have to host it on the same domain.
Yeah. That's the original thing I was going to say when you're using these attributes is you're at the mercy of the browsers. If you're using code that you wrote yourself that's running on the server or client side, then... or even client side, but I mean, if you're doing it in JavaScript or something, then you can make it happen.
Well, and he's saying they're lying too.
Oh.
He's saying it actually doesn't work.
Okay.
But I would be surprised if it goes in
Liars.
that direction, because everything is going in the other direction, where cross-platform stuff or cross-domain stuff is getting more and more restricted.
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing things like a content security policy
Yep.
that is getting, I think it's going to become more and more common. It's still not that common outside of the corporate world. Even in the corporate world, like a lot of their brochure-ish sites, they may not have a CSP on them. But that would be an interesting topic sometime to do, Ryan, would be a content security policy where we could talk about that, because I do think it's going to be more and more important. And basically, in a nutshell,
I was going to say, you want to define that, what that is?
yeah. So it's basically telling the browser where content is allowed to come from. So what you would do, like right now, you can just willy-nilly, you can link to any old JavaScript file anywhere and you can run the thing, right? Yep. But what you might want to do is you might want to say, no, you can only run JavaScript that is coming from this CDN URL or wherever you're hosting your JavaScript, for instance. It also typically wants you to get rid of or do some things to button down any inline CSS or inline JavaScript that you have, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But basically, it's essentially setting a policy for where stuff can come from that is on your site. And the browser will just refuse to load stuff that is not part of that. And it's a big thing where they're
rather than trying to protect in other means.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think things are moving in more in that direction. So I just would be shocked if they would ever roll back and go the other way, where stuff that didn't work cross-browser now works. Like, I would be surprised. And this is probably for anti-phishing reasons, I would think, you know? Mm-hmm. They probably want people, like when they click a download link and it links off to some, you know, crazy Ryan Bitcoin mining thing to earn money to do his 100-mile race, you know, whatever it is, that if you click download, it's not going to download this thing that you look at it later and you don't know where it came from. Right. You click download and it's going to open a window and it's going to show you that it's grabbing this thing from somewhere else. So I would be surprised if they really did actually get rid of that, to be honest.
All right. Let's move on to Craft 3.6. How about that?
So Joe Tunis actually brings up a really good point. So he mentioned something about CORS policies.
Mm-hmm.
You can think of CSP as the reverse of CORS.
Right.
Because CORS is specifying, you know, what other things can use this file or can use this JavaScript or whatever. And the content security policy is saying from what other places can you get stuff. So it's almost like an inverse of CORS in a way.
Right.
Anyway, let's get to it.
Let's get to it. So, Craft 3.6, I believe we're in what? RC4 was just released a couple days ago, something like that, earlier this week. And it actually
had a pretty... What does RC stand for, Ryan? What does RC stand for, Ryan?
So it stands for Release Candidate, and they typically comes after a beta period, and it basically means that the developers of the software consider this to be good enough and stable enough to release as a GM, like a gold master or a final release.
It's a candidate for a release. So this version could be the one that gets released.
Right. And you typically, in our community, I think it's probably typically like this, it's for your network of developers and people that are integrating with your software to give them a chance to make sure that their stuff works with this new release, and that's how our community uses it. You know, if there's something in there, and this isn't one that probably impacts SEOmatic a ton, but when we're getting into like a 4.0 or something like that, you know, if there's breaking changes, these release candidates are your final chance to make sure everything is working as it should.
It's a signal from the person that is making the mothership. That, hey, this version could be the one that we release.
Right.
So if you have anything that depends on it, now is the time, because this could be the one.
Yeah.
So it is a really useful signal, because, you know, beta versions come out. We don't all necessarily have the time or energy to test every single beta version that comes out. to make sure our plugins work with it, modules, all that kind of good stuff. But when an RC comes out, forgive me, Ryan, but as they say, that's when shit gets real. You know what I mean? They're like, this could be the one. This
I
could
gotta
be
mark
it.
this video as 18 plus. So yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not just for. I mean, it depends on the type of software, but I think in like in like with craft and software like that, it can also be a signal to, if you like are a consultant or have an agency where you actually are maintaining client sites, it could be your signal that you have, like, there's a new release, major release coming where you have to do whatever your update cycle is. For me, like, all of these let me know that it's time to maybe revisit some content or prepare some content. We talked about this yesterday, I think, where it's like, oh, it's RC4, like, start prepping some things because it's coming soon. So it is, I calling it a signal, I think, is a good way to describe it. But so this signal, we had another shining of the
right,
bat.
that's what they need. That's what they need.
What?
We got the bat signal that
You're thinking the same thing.
In the air. It should be the craft signal that puts that C, like puts the C on the clouds. You know what I mean?
We should do. You should commission someone to make that. So we actually had another signal for RC4, and unlike an RC, this actually has some new features. Usually RCs are like pretty just like bug fixing, things like that. Things that
I'm not going to take the bait. I'm not going to take the bait. Nope.
But
not going to do it.
If you go through, so these are the change log, and if you go into GitHub to the Craft CMS repository, and then choose the 3.6 branch, and then go to the change log v36. This is how they work. They'll kind of, in the branch, they'll have another change log that they'll just eventually get rid of and merge into the main change log.
You want that on the screen, or?
Oh, is it not on the screen? Sorry about that, everyone. Here I am chatting away, looking at my computer screen. So, a couple of things have been added, but this is the one I want to talk about for Craft Pro. We have a tablet and phone viewport emulation has been added to live preview. And I think who worked on this with them?
Josh Angel.
Josh Angel, yeah. So,
or is it Angle? Is it Angel or Angle?
He's an angel to me.
He's an angel. We're gonna go with Angel.
Yeah. So you can see a screenshot here that you can actually do the viewport switching. So I actually have that up and running. So if we go to lessons here and then preview. All right, don't mind the missing video. I don't have this localhost domain whitelisted. But here we have some new little buttons at the top here. So desktop, tablet, and
that's handy.
Phone. Let me hold my phone up here. It's a little big.
This is something that actually I know some clients would love this.
Yeah, it's great for preview. Yeah. I mean, for content editors, right? So they can preview, like, especially if you're doing layouts, like with the matrix, where you're having like multiple little modules and stuff. It'd be nice to just see how everything kind of flows in the different devices. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, as a developer, I guess I care less because I use stuff like Sizzy, or I use the responsive view in Chrome or whatever.
Right.
But for content authors, this would be a really, really useful thing for them. So they can, well, it also brings awareness to them, because a lot of these people, they'll be just using a desktop computer. They'll never even think what it might look like on a mobile device, right? So I think it adds the awareness too.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I'm on this 27-inch iMac, and like I see like the huge screen and everything, and you just think, oh, this is what
Look at Ryan balling out of control.
So anyway, yeah, I think this is cool. It's kind of an interesting like RC thing, but I guess it was simple enough to drop in.
I'm still not taking the bait, Ryan. You're trying. Like you're just dangling that hook in front of me and like dancing it. And do you like the glit? No, I'm not taking it. Like, what happens if this was like an API change for how plugins work with Craft, kind of dropped in the RC4? What would you think then? You always do this to me, so the roles reversed.
You're not gonna say
The
anything.
RC phase is supposed to be for bug fixes. Like that's all I'm gonna say.
Maybe it was a
That's all I'm
bug
gonna say.
that the live preview was missing the viewport shortcuts.
Sure.
I think
Let's
it's
go
nice.
with that.
I think it's nice, and they got it in. So there we are. So
No,
that's
I think
that's
it's. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a fantastic feature. I think, like I was saying, for content authors, A, to bring them awareness, and then B, to give them a simple way to just look at it. And for anyone who doesn't know, this used to be Josh Angel's plugin called Portal.
I actually
And
didn't know that. Oh, okay, that's funny.
Yeah. So he actually had a plugin that did this. I think it was a paid plugin. And then out of the kindness of his heart, he's like, you know what? This should just be built into Craft. So he did a PR, and basically he stripped everything out of his plugin and he integrated it with Craft, and then he shipped them a PR. So, everyone should buy Josh a beer and say thank you for him doing that. But I do think it's a great addition, and it's really nice of him that he recognized that and did it.
So we did cover 3.6 features, more of it in the CraftQuest on Call episode 13 back from about a month and a half ago. So if anyone wants to check that out, we talked about the update, the tag, and some other things as well. So if you want
Wait.
What?
Is this a link to the one, and you didn't even link to my article on updating Craft? How dare you?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Barefoot Contessa.
Oh my God.
I also linked to my friend Ben's Blitz plugin. I really like Ben. Ben's a good guy.
Ben is a great guy, but you totally should have linked to that. The reason is I wrote a section on updating to Craft 3.6 because it's not, if you don't change something in your composer.json, it's not going to work. So there's an article I wrote on updating Craft painlessly.
Yeah, we talked about we talked about this, and this is in. Yeah. I'm just gonna. You don't need to read Andrew's article because I'll just tell you right now. So, the PHP requirement for Craft 3.6 is now 7.25.
Yeah,
and if previous versions of Craft, the platform, this is your composer.json config platform. It's probably going to say 7.0 for most people. And if you try to update, you will get a composer error because you're trying to update a software that requires a version of PHP that is greater than what you've set in platform. So you'll want to update this.
Yep.
So Andrew's probably...
Otherwise, you cannot update.
You're going to have a surge of traffic once 3.6 comes out where everyone's like, actually, you know what?
Well, I did actually prioritize. I
have an article idea. Sorry, go ahead.
I've been wanting to write that article on updating Craft for a while.
Yeah.
But I prioritized getting it done because it looked like Craft 3.6 was about to come out. And I'm like, oh, well, this is going to be useful to people really soon. Yep. And then there was that little hitch in updating to Craft 3.6 where you literally will not be able to update to 3.6 until you go in and update this requirement. And I went in and I clarified, at least when I clarified it a month or two ago, I thought that maybe they would work some special magic behind the scenes if you use the little update button and it would work, but they didn't. So you have to go in and edit this file if you want to be, you have to go in and edit the composer.json to change the platform requirement before you can update to 3.6. It's just not going to work otherwise.
Yep. Good to know. I should get an article out on that.
And the other thing is, if you are running a version of PHP that is older than 7.2.5, which I actually am in production, interestingly enough, it will not work. Like you cannot update to this. Yeah, don't deploy. That's right.
Well, and this is a good reason to build and deploy and to use either like a zero downtime setup or one like where you build the site in a container first and then just throw the files up somewhere. So you actually don't ever get in a situation where you're deploying things that won't build because it won't even build. Like Composer will fail if it tries to install.
Yeah, and Tim Everts, I still like the way his name was together. I always read it as Timeverts, you know. Anyway, it's just my hang up. But he says to clarify, Is that something in the composer.json file of your project or the CMS that needs to be updated? Well, it's in your project, so that's the problem. If it was just in the CMS, then no problem. Craft would update it. Bada bing, bada boom, we're good to go. It's actually every single website that you make using Craft is actually a composer project. Mm-hmm. And you are saying in here, for this composer project, the platform has to conform to PHP 7.0.0. And you might say, well, why did they change it? Well, they have some dependencies that they're using that require PHP 7.2.5 or later. Otherwise, they won't work. So they have to bump this up. They have no choice. Otherwise things are just going to get out of date. And the reason it's going to fail is Composer will look at the platform PHP 7.0.0, and it will look at some of these other packages that say, no, I don't work on anything earlier than PHP 7.2.5, and it'll throw its hands up and say, nope, not installing, not happening.
There's no set of installable packages, right? Or maybe that's not the error, but it's something like that, where it just said we can't get what you need to match. Because Composer is trying to protect you from having a completely hosed system.
And Matthew is saying, so you need to update that line even if you're on the newer version of PHP. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Because this is what tells Composer what the platform requirements should be. Not what's installed, but what it should pretend everything needs to be copacetic with. Yeah.
All right. So
can you link to my freaking article? People are asking all these questions that I answered in the article, Ryan. How dare you? How dare you?
I'll write an article. I'll write an article and just link to that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should do a video on this. You should totally do a video.
No, I am. I'm going to.
Updating.
Oh, hey, that reminds me. If people want to find out like kind of some of what's coming up on CraftQuest, if you go to craftquest.io/roadmap, you'll see a beautifully designed Airtable database embed that kind of shows like what's kind of on my to-do list, what I'm working on now, and this is kind of a subset of things because sometimes I just throw ideas in. And so,
hold on.
Yes.
Slow down. Let me read it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anything in there about updating to. Oh, there it is. What's new in Craft 3.6?
Yeah.
All right. I guess I also don't see anything on there on Send Andrew bottle of liquor. That's not on that list.
That's true. That's not a content roadmap. That would be that'd be on my bribery roadmap.
You got to keep the talent happy, man. What are you doing?
That's true. I do have to keep the talent happy.
You're supposed to say you have no talent. Come on, it's a setup.
You need to start having like a rider, where it's like you need like a whole chicken, like M&Ms with the green ones taken out, things like that.
In my what do they call it? What's it like? What's that thing they're in? Like they're in a van or they're in something like that. They got their own
tour bus or something, or
what are all the celebrities have? No. All the celebrities, like usually they have their own little like a little mobile home kind of thing that they.
Oh, the trailer. It's just a trailer.
Trailer. Yeah. I want my trailer to be furnished with. I want rose petals on the steps of my trailers that lead into the kitchen. If you don't mind, that'd be great.
There was, I think, if you Google, you can actually Google and get people's riders. And I think I'm trying to remember. Yeah, Smoking Gun has a lot of them, but there was one from Clarence Clemens, who is do you know who Clarence Clemens is or was?
I don't think so.
So he was the saxophone player for Bruce.
Oh, I didn't know who that is. Yeah.
Band. So this is their his part was, that's where I got like the whole chicken. I think that was on here. Oh no, maybe not. Oh yeah, right here. To be boxed and placed in dressing room at 9:45 p.m. One whole fresh roasted chicken.
My God.
So it's probably like post show enough to time to cool down.
You know what I remember reading about? I remember reading it was some band, might have been the Rolling Stones, something like that, and they specified like only green M&Ms or something like that, or it might have been the
Yeah.
Beastie Boys or something like that. And they did it just to see if anyone actually read the damn thing and would do it. You know,
Oh man. Anyway,
you imagine some poor jerks.
the
That's their
idea behind
job.
the
There's a whole
riders is
bag.
that these people live on the road and they typically
Yeah.
eat like their meal, like those catered meals are typically how they have like their dinners every night for like months on end. So they just, you know, you don't want like what some random person in Kansas City thinks you might want to eat. So that's why they have the riders. Although I guess it can probably get a little carried away.
I mean, all right, let's be honest. Some part of it is a little bit of a prima donna bullshit, right? But another part of it, you're right. They're living on the road. And think about it. You live at home in your apartment or house or whatever it is, and you're used to being able to get exactly what you want, and you've got a routine, and you know, you want this tea, you have this tea every night, you have this coffee every morning.
Right.
It's not crazy that you would ask for that on the
No.
road if you're going to be living there for 6 months. You know, it's
Totally.
not crazy.
Yep.
But it is,
So-
I mean, some of them get really kind of bullshit prima donna, you know, give me bottles of Moe every night. And yeah, all right, whatever. You're an actor. Get over yourself, please.
You talking to me?
Huh?
So-
What?
Let's do one more question, maybe two, and then we'll wrap up. Sound good?
Let's do it.
So real quick in the chat, let me just switch your real back. Andrea said, "What if I ran composer config platform unset to remove the config?" I've actually never run that. I assume that would work.
I think it's going to be similar to there's an ignore platform.
Yeah,
Rex
that's what. Oh, that's what. Oh,
flag.
you replied to this. I thought
I'm
it was
on
a
top
little-
of it, man.
But wouldn't ignore
That is in the
platform
article that you
requirements?
didn't link to as well.
Wouldn't you do that like potentially at your own peril?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's kind of a hack, right? I mean, you're kind of trying to hack around what's already there. Like just edit the file and and make sure your PHP version is matching.
Yeah. Edit the file because,
And make sure you're not running PHP 7.1. You know, like don't try to get away with shenanigans. You'll end up in a bad spot at like 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning or something, which I know you have a lot of stories about. All right, let's go to the next question. Do you do a lot of stuff with FeedMe, Andrew?
not a ton.
Okay. So this person said that FeedMe is not importing the JSON data for suggested feed elements in the CMS. And this is actually one where it'd be cool to be able to have, like, if there's a question like this, because there's a lot going on here, just to message a person, say, hey, can you come on the live stream and actually like show us your code and walk through this? Because I think it would be, rather than a snapshot in time, it would be cool to walk through.
So it's unlikely that people don't know, but in case people don't know, FeedMe is a plugin that imports data, right? I mean, it does more than that, right? So it will work with a live feed, and on a regular basis, it can bring in data, or you can use it for just like a one-time import, all that kind of good stuff. And it imports JSON, XML, and probably a couple others. I don't know.
JSON, XML, Google Sheet, RSS, CSV, Atom.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything you would want. I actually have a Google Sheet one where I used it to populate nested categories from a Google Sheet, and it's using FeedMe, and then basically structuring the categories in a way that you can actually pull those in via FeedMe. But yeah, so I think, I was thinking about this the other day. I think this is, so this used to be a Verb, VERBB plugin, but Pixel and Tonic, Craft CMS, they took it on, and now it's a first-party plugin. And to me, it is hands down one of the most helpful, most powerful, like front-end display. I mean, it does actually do some of that, like, plugins that you can have. It's actually really, really helpful. You can do a lot with it. And it brings data migration. If you can get it into some sort of interchange format like JSON or XML, it's actually really powerful because it does all of the work behind the scenes of creating entries and populating everything for you. And you can choose, all the, it supports all the major element types. I don't think it supports third-party element types, but I don't remember. You choose your section.
It does if you write. I think the importee. I don't know what the right word for it is, but you basically write your own thing that says how to interface and how to import whatever your element or thing happens to be. Yeah.
Okay. So like you would register you would just you would be able to write that that FeedMe can import into you, and this is how. Because what it does is behind the scenes, right? It just uses the Craft API to create these elements, and you can map them. So you have different import strategies, and you tell it where in the tree, like root items here. And then whether there's a pagination URL. So if you had like a JSON endpoint that had pagination URL, you could use that. I've used this thing, like I've migrated dozens of sites worth of content, even like from Expression Engine 1 site that was built in like 2007 or something like that, or 2008. I had to do all the hard work on that end of writing code that would actually take data from that database and transform it into something that could be used by FeedMe. But then it was a matter of just pointing FeedMe at a JSON endpoint, and it just pulls it in, and you just map from the node or the item in the JSON, and you map it to the fields in Craft, and it pulls in all your fields based on the section that you're in and the entry type that you're in. And it's really great, and it'll do some smart things like auto date recognition. It'll create elements if they don't exist, if it sees one, like for users. If you are pulling in to an entries field, it'll create those entries automatically if they don't exist. And it'll even do, what is it called? Inner element fields. So if you have like an entries field where you have a relationship, those entries are going to have custom fields. So it actually will let you map those to the inner element fields as well. Oh, hang on. You still there?
Ryan?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So this is a question.
Yeah.
So Verb was written. FeedMe was written by Verb by Josh Crawford. He's a well-respected member of the community and everything.
Absolutely.
So whenever I see it, he did sell it to Pixel and Tonic, but still everyone thinks that it's, people still ask him all the time. I feel kind of bad. So because I feel so bad, instead of trying to answer this question myself, what I'm just going to do is live on air, I'm just going to give out Josh Crawford's cell number. Okay. And if you have an issue with this, what I want you to do, he's in Australia, so you got to do +61. Okay. +61 0439 375. And just call him up any time of day or night. Like, he loves it when it's 3, 4 in the morning. Just call him up and say, hey, I'm having this problem with FeedMe. Can you help me with it?
Oh, hang on a second. Actually, we got, let me go ahead and just add someone in here.
What?
Yeah. Hey, Josh, are you there? I'm gonna get Josh in. Hang on, Josh.
Are you kidding me?
No. Hang on, Josh. I have to assign you to guest too.
I think you're just messing.
No, here. Let's see. How do I got to get Josh in. Hang on a second.
Well, the scene right now is just me.
Look.
Oh my God, it is him.
How you doing, Josh?
Holy cow. Wow, look at this side-by-side contrast. I'm totally bald, and Josh has got this mane. He's got this like lion's mane of hair just exploding everywhere. It's like, my God.
I'll ship some to you, Andrew.
Yeah, do me a favor. Shave that off and send it to me. I'm going to wear that thing.
Just pretty much the only thing I've achieved in 2020 is just growing my hair.
Well, that's more than I that hair growth is more than I could have achieved in 45 years of age right now. So I'm impressed.
I'm sorry that I gave out your cell phone number on air, Josh, but I did. I gave it out.
That's all
I said
right.
people
I
could call you.
deliberately left off 3 numbers, so people will just have to guess the last 3.
So Josh,
Well,
you wanted to. Andrew was saying talk about feed me and stuff. We didn't even get to the question that the person was asking. I feel kind of bad now.
No,
But-
often Andrew just pings me on Discord and says, "Hey, we're talking about feed me again." And I say, "Oh, here we go." So I just thought I'm around, so I might as well drop in and see if I can be helpful or tell everyone how horrible feed me is. Or
No, feed me is great. So I think the problem he was having. Well, I guess you know what.
Is that a man bun? You have so much hair, it's in a man bun? Oh my God. I'm out.
I need to go back to the. I need to go back. Josh, what did we do the live stream on? It was on For Me, right?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, same thing. I just decided to drop in.
You just
when I was
tried to drop
around.
in, and hang on. I want to see what your hair looked like back then. Hang on.
At least Andrew's got like a punching bag back there.
Okay, let me. Andrew, come check this out.
Wow.
I'm gonna actually here. Let me just do just desktop. You see Josh there?
Yeah.
It's like, it's more like manicured. He has more of like the Michael Landon look going, minus the curls.
God damn.
That's an impressive head of hair you got there, Josh. Man.
That's what I'm saying. He could wake up in the morning and be worried he's like lost in the bush somewhere. He wouldn't be able to see anything.
We better save some content for the next live stream.
Yeah. So, Josh, I was giving all sorts of compliments about Feed Me because I've found it so useful. It's such a helpful plugin. I think it brings like data migration up the chain a little bit and makes it more accessible for people. So super cool. We didn't answer this person's question, and now I don't even remember how I was going to frame the whole thing. I got thrown off by my phone ringing.
Well, just put it on screen and tell Josh to answer it.
Yeah, Josh, I need you to
Yeah,
answer this.
I'm ready. I'm ready to have a go.
All right. So he says, feed me is not importing JSON data for suggested feed elements in Craft. So he's getting this matching. Let me zoom in a little bit. I'm not sure how good you can see this, Josh.
There we
I
go.
was about to say, I can't really say it.
So he's saying they're getting matching existing element with data, and then so he's mapping title, like the JSON, whatever it is, to title, but it's coming in as blank. And he says, unable to match existing element. Have you set up a unique identifier for title? What's at this line of code? Just kidding. So, any thoughts there on that? I usually do this to Andrew.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. It's a good test. The hardest thing about Feed Me support is that there's so many different facets to it. There's so much information you need. You need the feed, you need how it's mapped, what you're mapping to, and then the logging results. So it's the reason I built in like a really good, at the time, a support thing where it kind of bundles that all up and sends it in a support request, which I think Pixel and Tonic ditched. But if you went to the, I don't know, do you have a link to the Stack Exchange thing, or is it just easy to?
Yeah, I can send that to you.
On Discord.
I don't know if I have Discord open. Here, I'll send it over here. Hang on.
So this sounds to me like an element is coming in and it has an empty title and it says, because there's no title, I don't know how to match it. Is that kind of what's going on here?
Yeah, that's it. So it depends if it's like an element field or if it's the actual element you're trying to import, because you can obviously import, say, an entry, and then that entry might have element fields like an entry field or a category field. And you can map content in your feed to those inner fields. So I'd need to probably look a little bit around that post to see if it's that inner element. But yes, that's kind of what it's saying. It's saying for either case, if you try and import that top level entry, it needs to determine if there's an existing entry that already exists, and you need some way to uniquely identify that. So with FeedMe, you can say, right, I want to uniquely identify the entries that are already in there by their ID or by their title or slug or whatever. But the issue is that FeedMe doesn't know about that content unless you map it to something. So there's some little tick boxes down at the bottom of the mapping screen in FeedMe where you say, right, I want this to be the unique identifier. I think by default it's title. But then you also have to make sure that you map the title to the title field of the entry so that FeedMe at least knows about it. So that's what that sort of error sort of says, is that you're trying to match on the title on existing entries, but I don't have any data for title, so I can't figure out.
But titles don't have to be unique, right? And titles could be empty, right? Isn't it dangerous?
Oh, exactly. And title's probably not, it's purely the easiest option, and you can change it to whatever you want. Normally, I would have encouraged people to assign like a custom field, like a plain text field for a unique identifier. So depending on if you've got control of the feed or if you don't, there's probably a really long unique ID in the feed for the data that you're mapping in. You map that to a plain text field and you use that as the unique identifier, so that subsequent runs of the feed processing, it'll update an existing entry rather than adding a bunch of duplicates. So title's just the default because most of the time you won't have the same title, but obviously it's up to the user to change it to whatever is suitable for the task.
So could this be as simple as one of the things that is being imported just has an empty title? Could it be that silly?
It could be that as well. So it could be either they haven't mapped the title field to the title of the entry, or it could be in the feed, whatever they're mapping to title is just empty. It's hard to say again without knowing what they're mapping to title in the feed. I don't know.
I would assume it's display name, because that's what is in here is display name, I would assume.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It almost sounds like they're not actually mapping display name to title if it's coming in empty, because the display names are obviously, there's something in there, right?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. And so I actually, I didn't have a chance to finish testing this, but I actually set this up with their JSON just to try to check it. I think I've run into something before where if there was like an unexpected, maybe not data type, but like illegal characters or just malformed data or something, that it would sometimes choke and just kind of pretend it's blank. I don't know if it gets, but I wanted to see if there was something like that going on. But I felt like from reading this is that there actually was a fair amount going on, because they did have nested data too. So I wasn't sure what.
Yeah, it looks like they're probably mapping to an entries field.
Okay.
From what it looks like, if they've got nested data, because if you sort of kick back out a little bit, just scroll to the left of that snippet, you've sort of got display name fact sheets.
Yep.
And then in that, you've got fact sheets as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's hard to know which is the starting level where they want to
start,
whether that's fact sheets or business startup. And you can use the what's it called? The primary element.
Right.
I think that's what it's called. To basically set that starter of how far in you want to start as the
right. So that's the one
entry
step
data.
That's the one step before where you choose your primary element. So you can say I want to do it at the root, and typically with data that like JSON with that you don't control, or XML that you can kind of choose. Right.
Yep. It's usually with the most amount of nodes you put that on there. So yep, that makes sense.
All right. So, and then someone asked that they're trying to import in a structure, which to me, kind of, this is why I stopped working on it, because I got confused. Because I don't think you can import a structure. You can't import this hierarchy in one pass into a structure, right?
So you can map to, if you head back to feed me, you can map to the parent of an entry that you're importing. So
Right.
just say, yeah, save and continue.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, don't. Go back and select what you had selected.
Oh, okay. The child.
Yeah, what you had was right there. Yep, Yeah, the child.
Yep.
So if you're importing into a structure, is this channel that you selected? Oh yeah, sorry, yep, parent. So you can say, I want to map to the parent using the data in the feed.
Which is
And
this.
I think you can say, yeah, the data there specified as the title. So,
but you don't get the inner elements like you do when it's an entries element, right?
so that should work out. So because it'll process everything.
It'll make a structure that mirrors that hierarchy.
No,
really?
I
No,
don't-
that won't work.
No, it won't work.
That won't
So
work.
so what I've done in the past is I've gone in and I've said, I mean, you can either do it, you can do it two ways. You can start with the children or the parents, but I've always gone in and imported the parents, and then I've come through and imported and basically did the same thing and then just assigned and said, this is the parent when I did the children. Does that make sense? So, yeah. But it's two passes, though.
Yeah, parents. The structure, and it's similar with categories as well. It's always been a little bit of a tripping point. I never really quite figured out how best to handle it because it's complicated.
Yeah.
So yes, at the moment, yeah, if you wanted to import into the parent, you'd have to rely on either doing a brand new feed to do just the children or just the parents first and then the children. And then you'd map based on that. But it's also trying to find the parent in Craft when all the data you have is from your data feed and trying to match against that. So yeah, it's a bit tricky.
Yeah. Oh, I have a licensing issue with your plugin, Andrew. I have to look at that. Sorry.
Well, pay for it, Ryan.
No, this is just localhost. All right.
Whatever.
Cool. All right. I don't think we answered their question, but we did learn some more about FeedMe, and that's.
Well, we kind of did, right? So maybe what he's trying to do. This isn't
so yeah,
possible.
if you scroll down to the bottom of that page,
right here,
Feed Me.
Oh, in FeedMe. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, in Feed Me. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So as long as that title is ticked, and there is content in the feed for title, it should be fine. But yeah, like Andrew said, the common mistake is that one item in that feed just doesn't have content for that title, and it's it's freaking out. The other way I'd suggest debugging it is using the debug action because it at least steps through every single iteration of the feed and shows you the output.
Back in the list of feeds, right? Is that where you get to it?
Yep. So you just have to expand that. You have to have dev mode on for it to appear. But yeah, if you click that, it opens up a new window and it imports it all, but it steps you through all the steps.
The feed is invalid.
Possibly because you haven't.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Awesome.
So at least that way you can look at every step and be like, right, that data matches this and that's importing correctly, or you can actually see what data it is trying to map to an entry. So that can be really useful.
Andrew, you managed to get Josh on the live stream to talk about a plugin that he doesn't even own anymore.
I feel bad.
I'll provide support for SEO-matic next.
Oh, wow.
That sounds fair. No, you're a good sport, man, because we basically just prank dialed you and got you on here and got you to answer support questions for a plugin that you sold to Pixel.
Josh it's not his first time dropping in on a live stream. So
yeah, it's not my
this is kind of like, it would be like if we Said, Josh, we got your ex-girlfriend on the line. She'd like you to help her out with some problems she's going through right now. And you're like, all right, what's the problem?
Do you remember that show, This Is Your Life, where they would surprise you with all of your old family members and stuff like that?
Oh, God.
This could be. In 2007, Josh, you wrote Feed Me. Do you remember that plugin? Well, we have it here with us. And we're going to go through the code base.
It's back and it's angry.
Cool. Well, Josh, thanks for joining us and hanging out.
Thanks for allowing me to go crash.
Yeah, and have a good Friday.
No worries.
All right.
Thanks,
see
guys.
ya. Bye. Very cool. Man. All right. Well, I think we can't top the drop in of Josh Crawford, that's for sure.
And we also can't top the hair. Take your hat off.
I mean, come on. Look.
Seriously.
Come on,
here. How dare you?
I can't even do it here. So, all right, Andrew. That was good. Super informative. We went through a lot of questions. Let me just check the chat. I haven't been monitoring as we were talking through with Josh, so I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. Have you been checking it out?
I've been looking at it. Yeah,
okay.
I mean, a couple of people found it useful, the stuff that he talked about, so that's great.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Josh, for joining us. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in on this edition of CraftQuest on Call. I'm Ryan Ireland. Andrew, thank you as always.
Of course. Thank you very much. And I was going to say, you should probably ping Ollie and tell him that we had Josh on and we talked about it on the show and point him at it. Tell him, here's an answer.
Cool.
Right, make it count.
Make it count.
Next live, Tim Everett says, next live stream, Andrew will be wearing Josh's hair.
Oh, ooh. We should.
That means that I'm gonna fly down to Australia. I'm gonna kill him, and then I'm gonna wear him as a skin suit. Right? That's what's gonna happen. Right?
I was actually thinking you'd just buy like some real cheesy wig from like the costume shop or something like that. But
all right. I mean, I've dressed up like a church lady for Halloween, so that's fine.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Andrew, we'll see you on the next one in a couple weeks. Sound good?
See you.
Okay. Bye. Is that a Kim's Convenience?
Kim's Convenience. See you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next time. Bye-bye.